We'd like to welcome to the podcast today Ashil Parag. Ashil is a visual designer and brand strategist. He has founded and co-founded a number of companies, both in the profit and nonprofit sectors. Thank you for coming.
Excited to be here.
I love it. Your bio is the shortest bio I've ever seen, and I appreciate it.
I'm not all that excited.
You're super exciting. We got lots of things to talk about. What was your first job?
Oh man, so it was the day I turned 16, and it wasn't something that was forced upon me by my parents or anything, but the day I turned 16, I was like, I'm gonna go and get a job, and I worked at a movie theater.
I love it.
Yeah, and so I worked, the hierarchy structure was you worked in the concession stand, and then that's kind of where everybody kind of starts, and then you get to move out and become an usher on the floor, which is taking care of the lobby and all the houses and making sure everything's clean after the fact. And then there's the box office, and then there's like the projection. So I stuck around at the usher level. Yeah, so I ran the floor for a little while.
You're like level 2.
That's where I like to be. Yeah.
What did you do after that?
So that was my only job up until college. And then even intermittently through college, I would work summers at the movie theater back when I would come back home. But then typically, as soon as I got into school, I started taking on just internships and doing graphic design and branding work. And so my first kind of internship in the design space was working for this guy. And I would basically design Domino's ads that went in the yellow pages. And so nothing sexy by any means, but it was my first design job.
So what do you mean design Domino's? What does that mean?
Domino's Pizzas.
Oh!
So Domino's Pizzas had all these various locations in the, in basically all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. Mm-hmm. And I would take out and design ads for Domino's that they would go inside the yellow pages.
I love it. So my next question how did you get started in graphic design?
Yeah, so I actually started out in architecture. I've forever growing up, without a question, I knew that I wanted to be an architect. Mm-hmm. And so my first year at school was in the architecture program, and I quickly realized how much I disliked math. And but I still wanted to have that element of design and creativity, and so design and visual branding was a very natural segue for me, and so it was a pretty quick pivot for me in my mind. But it started out with architecture and then went to branding and design, just visual design, for no other reason other than my hate for math.
So funny though, but art is math, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And as a matter of fact, one of my favorite bands, they became really well known because they would write songs according to the Fibonacci sequence, which mm-hmm. is the spiral, and so it was it's relevant everywhere. It's math is obviously everywhere, but I didn't want to be the one doing it. I wanted to appreciate it from afar, and that was gonna be my ceiling with math.
It's so funny to me. Yeah, because people are always telling me how I'm good at math. And I'm like, no. We do plus, minus, times, and divide around here. It's not like, there's no like crazy algorithms.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to break out the algebra.
Yeah.
But then I have to remember how it works and then build it into a spreadsheet formula so I don't ever have to think about it again,
of
right?
course.
Like,
we
don't do math.
Automation is
here.
everything.
There's no math. So what have been some of your favorite design and branding projects?
So let's see. So my roots in design were with the music industry. Mm-hmm. And so I had moved so I went to school in Knoxville, and then I really wanted to work within music. And it was either going out to LA or going to New York or going to Nashville. That's where music was. And mm-hmm. I grew up in Memphis, went to school in Knoxville, and LA and New York seemed like it was going to be too far for me, and Nashville was too close to home for me. And so I kind of naturally landed in Atlanta, and Atlanta had a thriving art scene and a production scene. It was up and coming in production space, but had a lot of music. And so a lot of my first kinds of attempts or real work came working with promoters and managers and A&R reps and record labels, really small ones. But so some of the most exciting work that I did was working then, and I was able to do album covers for a couple of artists, and so that was exciting. people that I can't imagine anybody would know right now. But I was able to do a little bit of work for some musicians back in Atlanta. But I think the most rewarding work for me, even to this day, comes from doing design and branding for nonprofits. And so I was on a founding board of directors for a nonprofit in Atlanta called Wonder Root. And I was able to do a lot of their kind of brand strategy early on and designing the interior space of the building, as well as a lot of the collateral that we'd use. And then I've also done a lot of work for a youth homeless nonprofit in San Francisco called Larkin Street. And so that was always really rewarding for me, being able to do their growth campaigns and various funding collateral. And I'm currently do a lot of design for a company called Instruction Partners out in Nashville. And so everything that I do that's designed, that's for nonprofits, is the most rewarding work. And I don't know, it sounds like a little bit of a cliche, but I think when there's value and reward in the community that it serves, then you're excited to do that work. And so kind of the most rewarding stuff comes from all the nonprofits that I do.
I love that. You just answered my next question too. So let's talk about Modify watches. How did you guys get started?
It was it was a fun story. So I had my partner, well, two early partners. When they both graduated from business school at Haas in San Francisco, and so my cousin actually was a classmate of one of the founders, and he introduced me to him because he was working on a project while he was in business school. And so he said, just call up my cousin. He's in Atlanta. He does visual branding stuff. He'll take care of you. And so he reached out to me, and then we had a really good working relationship immediately. We kind of saw eye to eye on just professionally, but even personally, we became really good friends really quickly. And so once he graduated school, him and my other partner, they kind of had this plans to start this company, which they kind of just accidentally landed on because one of the guys had gone to Korea to interview for Samsung, and then when he came back, he brought back a bunch of these watches, and he showed my other business partner. He's like, "Hey, these are cool. Let's sell these to our friends and family before we go get real jobs." And so then he called. So one of my partners calls me up and says like, "Hey, if you don't have anything going on, would you mind designing doing some branding work for this watch company?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely. I can do that." And then a few weeks goes by, and he's like, "Hey, would you mind designing watches?" And then a few more weeks goes by, and, "Hey, would you mind designing a watch for Facebook?" And it's like, so what was supposed to have a really quick expiration date, which was supposed to be 3 months to 4 months. It was going to be a summer project before he started his real job and before he started his real career. And then that ended up being an 8-year project, and which just got sold recently, earlier this year. And so it was all the right place at the right time and kind of accidental and kind of being opportunistic.
That's really cool. So what were some of the biggest obstacles in growing Modify watches?
So it was a period of time when it was before smartwatches, and it was a time when kind of watches were a little bit forgotten. With the wave of iPads and laptops and computers and every other thing that tells time, you didn't really need a watch anymore. And so here we are. We came into a period of time where people had kind of forgotten about watches, and they didn't really need them, and they didn't have any functional element for them in their lives. And so the biggest challenge was how to reintroduce them as part of like a lifestyle, like an element that people wear. And so one of the bigger problems or challenges was trying to reintroduce people to wearing watches, right? Like this can be something that's not just an afterthought, but it can be something that is very forefront in the way that you get dressed in the morning and how you can make it yours, and it doesn't have to be stale and stagnant. And so
how is it an accessory, not really a functional piece?
So the idea about the company was it was all meant to be modular and interchangeable, meaning the faces would come apart from the bands and the straps that you would wear them with. And so you could collect any number of designs of faces and then collect a number of band colors and then mix and match and swap them out. And so you could wear one watch with a face on it, at work, which was kind of conservative. And then if you wanted to go out and go to the bars, you could change out the strap, and all of a sudden you've got a very, outgoing, fun watch. And then if you want to wear it while you're at the beach and you want something fun and funky, you can change out the strap again. And so, you would have 5 faces and 10 straps, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of different looks for literally any occasion in your life. And so you could pair it with a suit or a tuxedo if you wanted to, or you could wear that same watch with, at the beach. And so, it was exciting in that you could celebrate your identities and make it kind of your own and have it be multifunctional, even though it was an analog watch.
It's an analog watch. So what were the greatest successes in growing Modify Watches? I mean, you guys just sold the business. So, how did you guys get there?
So one of the biggest elements, so we had a number of different sales channels, right? Where we had a website, and so you could purchase them like you would anything else online. And then we were in wholesale, so we would try to get them into stores, into boutiques around the country. But what we quickly learned was that there was also a market for companies, or whether they were large or small, to customize their watch, because not only were we interchangeable and modular in the way that straps and faces could be changed, but then we were able to design companies' branding on these watches, and so they would use them as swag. And so one of our very first clients was Facebook, and Facebook was getting ready to celebrate their 7th year. I know it's crazy where the time was gone, but they were going to celebrate their 7th year, and they thought that would be cool to give all of their employees a branded Facebook watch that was not branded, but it was definitely Facebook. And so they asked us if we could design custom watches for them, and at that point we hadn't. But we're like, as a young company, you always say yes. If somebody asks you if they want to buy something from you, and even if you don't have it, you say yes. So figure out a way to make it. And so that's kind of what happened. Facebook asked us if we could give them 3,000 watches. And so we kind of just landed kind of in that space, the B2B space. And so a lot of the success of the company came from us being able to work with companies for their swag items or their giveaways or their gifts, end of year gifts, et cetera. And so
that's really cool.
Yeah, we got to work with a lot of cool companies.
And so you guys also had like the NFL, so you had all those.
So many years later, then we started doing licensing. Our first steps with licensing were smaller brands like Domo or Tetris. Like I say small, but like Domo, Tetris, like those types of things. And then we got into the sports, and so we got into Major League Baseball and the NBA, NHL, MLS, and eventually the NFL as well.
That's really
and
cool.
So we were able to grow the company into with licensing, and so we were able to get into almost every stadium in the country of the major sports leagues. And so it was that was another kind of a big next step for us.
That's awesome. So you guys just sold right to Custom Ink. What was that process? What was that process like? I think people are always like, "Yay! We have an exit strategy." Was that your exit strategy, or just kind of happened?
It was all. They were always on our short list. We always thought someday if this company would buy us, then we would be really, really excited. And so that was definitely one of the companies. And so it was, it was definitely a long process, one in which probably my business partner learned a lot more than I did, because while I am a lot of things, I tend to stay. I don't add a lot of value to that part of the business, right? Like, and so like I'm a visual designer, right? Like I'm branding, and I can beautify things and make people feel like they belong to something, right? Like I can do all of those things really great. But my business partner, he was the one who piloted all those efforts for finding those companies, talking to them, finding mutual benefits and stuff like that. And so it was a long process, one in which I definitely learned a lot more about business than I ever thought I would ever.
Right.
But it was a long process, and one in which is not for the faint of heart.
Oh my gosh, I know. I have a couple clients whose like business had been purchased.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't involved in any of that. And
Sure.
they're just like, like the reams of paper, and like they're like, this is a 3-year process and getting this thing sold, and I'm just like, you have more stamina than I think. But entrepreneurs have that stamina a lot of the time. So tell us about some of your current projects. You guys have a candle company, right?
Yeah. And so back in 2014, while we were, or 15, where we were living out in California, and we were in San Francisco, and we were pregnant with our second child, and my wife decided, I don't want to go back to my corporate life. Her corporate life, I mean, her prior life was in hospitality and events, and it was long, grueling hours and long days and weekends and nights, and that was not something that she was interested in doing. And so she was at home at that point with our then 2-year-old, and we were living 40 minutes outside of the city. Our daughter was not in school. We were in an apartment complex, and so everyone was transient. So we didn't really meet neighbors. She wasn't in daycare, so we weren't meeting any other parents. We were 40 minutes from the city, so it was very rare for her to come in and out of the city to see our coworkers. And so our social lives were really, really small, and we kind of felt a little bit paralyzed by that. And so she was at home with my 2.5-year-old for all day long, and she was just going out of her mind, and she wanted to work, and she wanted to contribute, and she wanted to exercise her brain. And so she's like, I've got to do something, and I don't want to go back to the all these jobs that I used to have. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to start a company. I was like, I can help you and I will support you in whatever efforts you want. And so she's like, I'm going to start a soap company. I was like, fantastic. I love soap. 2 days later, I hate soap. I'm not going to do soap anymore. And it was in the middle of, after she came to, so first realization, I'm going to start a company. Great. Second realization, I don't want to start a company that I kind of thought I had. The third realization happened in the middle of the night, literally happened in the middle of the night. She shot out of bed and she's like, I know what I'm going to do. And it's not going to be soap. I'm going to make candles, and they're going to be awesome, premium, economical candles. They're going to be environmentally friendly. There's going to be a give back component. And I was like, I love this company. I love it so hard. And so while Modify was happening during the day, for me, I would come home and brainstorm with her about how we were going to build this company, and we would chalkboard all over the walls, and we built this company. It's called Carmelit. And so the idea of the company was to be able to create, like I said, a premium candle for the masses, right? Something that you didn't have to spend more than $30 or $40 or $50 on. A candle shouldn't cost that much. It just shouldn't. It just burns away, and it shouldn't cost that much to have a great candle. And so so she built this company. So her and I figured out that we wanted to have it be locally sourced, right? And so we wanted to have it all be soy wax and harvested by American farmers, and she wanted to hand pour them herself. And so that was the company that we built. And so here we are 4 years later, 5 years later now. And so Carmelit is thriving. She does the day-to-day ops, and I will kind of help her with like the long lead and kind of big picture kinds of things while I do all the branding stuff for that as well.
Still hand pouring them?
She does.
Oh my gosh.
We hand pour them, and like I said, so we built out our basement. So we've got 1,000 square foot basement that we turned into our studio with ventilation and tables and like just space and storage, like just space to be able to run our company. And so and another big element of us how we designed this company was we wanted to be ultra present with our children, right? So ultra present meaning everybody has regrets about I wish I spent more time with when they were young. Like when did they grow up, right? And both my wife and I always had in our minds that we don't want to wake up, when they're 10 and 15 years old and wondering where did their childhoods go. And so therefore we never really had nannies. We didn't have daycares. We didn't put them in school too early. And we wanted to be at home. And so we worked from home. We crafted our design. We designed our lives so that we could be ultra present with them. And so there are these days that we kind of have that regret of like, why is there a 3.5-year-old hanging from an entire pot full of 200-degree wax? This is not what we they feel like they help. They absolutely feel like they help, but they just get in the way. But it's fine. It's great. There are times when, it's carrying 3,000 pounds of equipment or materials up and down the flight of stairs, like to take it to load it, to take it to the couriers, or to bring it in when they come in raw form. And so we'll send them up and down the stairs with, 5-pound boxes of materials. Okay, you take this down and you bring this up. You take this down and you bring it up. And so in that way, we try to incorporate them in any way we can.
Helping is always solid.
But yeah, so Carmelit is again has a number of different sales channels. One, we are online. We also have we're in boutiques across the country, and then we also do B2B stuff with them as well. And so Facebook, Instagram, So there's a number of companies that we create branded candles or
really cool.
private label candles, and so that's a big component of the business there as well.
Dang, all by hand too.
All by hand.
This just blows my mind. Anything else you're working on right now?
Yeah, a couple of other things.
You're like, I haven't taken a break.
So like I said, I have been leading brand strategy for a nonprofit, and they're in the education space. They're doing amazing things. They're called Instruction Partners. They're based out of Nashville, and they basically they give small school districts and schools that are underserved with better curriculum, more appropriate curriculum, better ways to teach that. And so they work with school districts and leaders to form better education.
That's awesome.
And so I'm leading a lot of brand strategy and design for them. I am also kind of early for another startup, which is for big and tall men, and it's called Holton. And so I think as of today, they might actually be going live today.
Yay!
And so it's an underserved community. Big and tall men's clothing is really bad. It's really poor. Quality is poor. Selection is poor. And so the entire experience is actually really bad. And so there's a digital native vertical brand. And so it's called Holton. And so we're trying to get that kind of up and running to serve a community that has been underserved. And then
I need to do big and tall women next.
So big and tall women is actually that there have been, from what I understand, that has been solved. Not fully, but there are there are really great experiences for that. But for men, they have been forgotten. And so we're trying to get that. Yeah. And then I've got another side project that I started earlier this year. And that is called it's called Faith by Art.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically designed art for the Christian community. And so
cool.
Basically I take all of the text of the New Testament and I created on a super large 54 by 36 inch print, and the entire Bible is written on there. And then
really cool.
I create iconography around it to create just a fun new Art Nouveau kind of experience for the Christian community.
That's really
and
good.
So
it's not all script font, is it?
It is not all script font. No,
because everything is all script font.
That would be really tough. Yeah. So a lot of different things, right? So a lot of different things. But I think one of the keys to being a good designer is you can't always serve one community. Your visual language has to be diverse, and so keeping these various industries in my back pocket and working with them and having the ability and opportunity to be able to work within these industries sharpens your design and my branding skills. And so
it sharpens your ability to create other visuals
absolutely
around what people need.
Yeah, I
love it. So before I ask my last question, what is the easiest way for people to find you?
Yeah, so I think I'm on social media.
Yes,
right?
You are.
I am on social media. So it's either there or you can find me at any of these other websites that are. So it's faithbyart.com, carmelit.com, wearholton.com.
And then Design Apart.
And Design Apart Studio is my portfolio site. So this is actually funny. I have never had to, because I've always worked for myself. From the day I graduated college, I just worked for myself. So I've never had to put together a resume, nor have I ever had to have a portfolio.
Right.
I've just never had to solicit myself. And so only was it the beginning of this year after I sold after Modify got acquired, was that, you know what? people probably want to be able to find me, and I probably want to let people know that I exist. So let me put together a portfolio site. And so designapartstudio.com is my portfolio site. And then all my contact information, ways to reach me are there as well.
I love it. Somebody asked me for a CV the other day, and I was like, A, what's a CV?
Yeah.
And B, I don't do remnant resumes anymore.
Yeah, right, exactly.
If you don't know what,
Yeah.
if you can't figure out.
If you need a cover letter, just call me. Let's go have coffee.
Yeah,
that's my cover letter.
Yeah, we'll do the thing. Like, check out all my myriad of websites.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so final question. What is the one thing every business owner needs in their branding?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the biggest driver of success, in my opinion, is you have to be genuine, right? You have to be purposeful and genuine. If you're trying to scam someone or make an easy buck or not really solve a problem that exists, then I think that's when you sell yourself short, and then whatever community you're trying to design for. And so I think being genuine and having an honest conversation with yourself about why you do what you do, what problem you're trying to solve. Are you making this problem up, or does this problem actually exist that you are trying to solve for, right? And so I think the biggest challenge is be genuine, right? And identify a challenge and go solve it, as opposed to just inventing a challenge and then you're solving something that nobody cares about. And so I think for any company, if you're trying to solve real problems, then you will succeed.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been great.
Yay, that was fun.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I love it.
Cool.
That was quick. That was easy.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening. If you found this podcast to be inspiring, helpful, and entertaining, please like and subscribe. This helps us grow the community and reach more people. If you are interested in learning more about this episode's guest or accessing any of the books or other resources mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the description box below. Until next time, be abundant.